Hello everyone and welcome back to another exciting edition of Boyographic, the show in which I, Matt, the Game Boy, will take you through the highs and lows of the Game Boy library, one card at a time. This week we'll be continuing your license and looking at a game requested by you lovely people. It's Robocop. We've all heard the tall tale that states that all licensed games are bad. For a lot of people, this myth stems from the tainted childhoods caused by two video games publishers, namely LJN and Ocean. Now, as I've hopefully dispelled with Alien 3, not all games published by LJN on the Nintendo Game Boy were bad, but as I've only shown you the abysmal Cool World put out by Ocean, I thought it was time to set the record straight. What better way to do this in your license than with a title requested by you lovely people, namely Robocop. Robocop, of course, is a great movie from 1987 about Officer Alex Murphy, who, after being brutally murdered by a gang of criminals in a failed arrest, gets revived by a corporation called Omni Consumer Products as a cyborg police officer, known simply as Robocop. It's a rad movie that I'll assume you've all seen, but if not, go give it a look-see. But maybe skip the sequels. I like them, but they're not for everyone. Naturally, a slew of video games followed. Initially developed by Data East for the arcade, Ocean took the job of loosely porting this side-scrolling action game to the home console market. And for reasons that will become apparent, the coin-op feel of the original is definitely still present in the Game Boy game. While Robocop follows the story of the movie surprisingly well for a handheld title, it seems that the bit of the movie Ocean really wanted to convey to the player was the classically brutal scene where Murphy is dismembered by bullets, as this is what you will spend most of your time playing Robocop doing, dying under overly frustrating odds. Some would see this as a challenge, but as it's a one death and done game, repeating the same wave of enemies again and again isn't my idea of a good time. As the game offers unlimited continues of its levels, it's baffling that extra lives aren't a part of this game, as they would have just made things a whole lot easier. But I guess nobody ever said that crime plays fair. So, armed with only his trusty Auto 9, Murphy must mow his way through 5 stages of serious run-and-gun gameplay that makes Mega Man 3 look like the Little Mermaid in terms of its difficulty, as he's taking these people with him dead or alive. While there are various different enemies, all with their own attack patterns to learn, the basic run, stop and shoot formula generally applies to the vast majority of the game. Though my advice is simply slow it down a little bit. Clear one screen at a time, move on to the next, and for the most part, you'll be fine. The game visually looks pretty nice for an early Game Boy title, and its locations generally look like different environments, even if they are kind of bland gameplay-wise. Which is a shame, as if not for the difficulty and unexciting stages, Robocop would be a truly great game. As when it's not beating you over the head, its tight controls make it a real fun title to play. Between each of these 5 main stages is a small boss fight or a mini-game that Murphy must beat. Be it gunning down a man with a hostage, using facial recognition software to find a perp, or even shooting at targets. All things that happened in this movie. Well, except in the movie it's not targets, it's baby food you're shooting to recalibrate your gun. But I guess shooting pictures of children wouldn't really send the right message. There are boss fights in this game, namely against the dreaded Ed 209, who you first need to fight with your hands, then again later shooting the hell out of it before the final confrontation with Dick Jones. That, I must admit, I never saw, because the last stage was just too much for me. I simply had to put the controller down and walk away, as I kept dying and dying and dying to the same bullshit. At least in earlier levels you could restore your health and pick up more powerful weapons. Yeah, sure, on the last stage you get to play around with the assault cannon from the movie, but it's hardly got any ammo compared to the amount of enemies you need to face. It's just not fair, Ocean. However, the beacon of hope in this game that makes this a title you should own regardless of if you will ever feasibly beat it is its musical score. Fans of other Ocean games will already be familiar with the work of Jonathan Dunn, as he could make the C64 SID chip sing. While his work on other titles like Platoon and Rambo 3 are great, for me his work on Robocop is exceptional. It's so damned good, it was even chosen by the advertising firm's gold greenlist Trot for their cycle ad campaign for artisan washing machines here in Europe. Why they chose a piece of Game Boy music for a nationally syndicated ad campaign based on the Academy Award winning short Tango by Polish filmmaker Zbigniew Rebkowski, only they know. Apparently, they just liked it, approached Ocean about licensing it, and the rest is history. I just think it's a wonderful testament to the strength of Dunn's work. All in all, Robocop is a pretty mixed bag. Its general gameplay is very tight for a Game Boy title. It scrolls very nicely, and despite having waves of enemies firing on you at all times on screen, it never slows down or tears under the strain. Combine this with the fact its music is top-notch, as are the visuals, and Robocop would be high on my list of recommendations. For the casual gamer, if you can cope with the fact you'll probably never beat Robocop without a lot of patience and a little luck, then there's a lot of good to be found in Robocop. However, its mini-games, while an interesting way to mix plot elements into the story, offer weak gameplay, and as I've mentioned just once or twice in this video, it's really fucking hard. While the game does offer unlimited continues, some easing up on the waves of enemies or offering the ability to die a couple of times through a stage would have really made the game more accessible to a larger audience. If you are one for a challenge though, then give it a go, as there are far worse games than Robocop out there, especially ones carrying the Ocean logo. Before this episode ends, I'd also like to give a quick shout out to Super Tomato in Cardiff, where I picked this title up around Christmas last year. It's a fantastic store, my favourite bricks and mortar I've ever come across in my travels, because the staff are amazing, they know their stuff, and the stock is always well priced, and there's a large variety of it. If you're ever in my homeland of Wales, then please check it out. Their Facebook page is linked in the description down below. And that brings us to the end of another episode of Boyographic, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed. If you have, please subscribe and share this channel with some other people you think may be interested in some Game Boy loving. If you yourself are new to the channel, why not check out some more about Boyographic videos in which I look at the highs and lows of the Game Boy library one card at a time, and generally release these every Friday. You can also look at some Boy Curious videos where I look at bootlegs and oddities for the system, as well as our All the Glory videos, in which I play through a game, cutting out all the deaths, giving you none of the faff, but all of the glory. Again, as I said, please subscribe if you haven't already, and find me on Twitter at GameBoyle. Until next week, Game Boys and Girls, we'll be back with the 50th episode of Boyographic. Can you believe it? And a continuation in your license. Game on.